there's a lot to benefit from the third web. Why Web3 if you don't own, you don't have access, and you're not earning? So Web3 is actually a huge opportunity for each and every one of us. Stay tuned regarding the foundational knowledge of Web3 and every part of Web3. Stay tuned for more on the Web3 Chris's channel. Okay, hi everyone, this is Web3 Chris, and I've been interfacing a lot with people, newbies in the space, people that are new to the Web3 ecosystem, and I realized from my interactions that a lot of people do not know what Web3 really is. A lot of people do not know. A lot of people think it is something that is maybe just a particular part of Web3. They assume that that's what Web3 is all about, especially due to the mass onboarding by the Telegram mini apps, during the Telegram mini apps era. A lot of people from then till now still have not gotten it right when it comes to what Web3 is about. So this is basically an attempt to bring clarity, to bring clarification to Web3, what Web3 is about. Because you need to first understand what Web3 is, then before you now know how to position to make the most of the Web3 ecosystem. Okay, before we proceed, ensure you are subscribed to the channel, turn on notifications so that you get updates from time to time, because we'll be posting Web3 relevant content, Web3 related content. We'll be bringing you updates so that you stay positioned. Okay, so let's get right to it. What is Web3? When you hear the Web3, it should suggest to you that there was a Web1 and a Web2. So this is like the third version of the web. So there was Web1, Web2, and this is Web 3.0. So before we go into Web 3.0, let's first understand what the first web and second webs, first and second webs were about before we now go deeper into or go further into what Web3 actually is. Okay, so Web1 is the write-only web. What that means, write-only, what that implies is that you could only write. By write, I mean you could only view. So it was more like a digital newspaper or a digital library where you just went to consume or you went to view. You could not make changes to that version of the internet. You could not contribute in that version of the internet. You only consumed. You see that it was heavily centralized, meaning just a few people were the ones that benefited from it. Just a few people were the ones in charge and in control of what is put out there and what others get to consume. So it was largely centralized. Now we move on to Web 2. Now before we go on to Web 2, I think Web 1 started somewhere around the 1990s, if I'm not mistaken. That's around 1990, and then lasted up to about 2004. Now there are still platforms that use that format, the likes of Wikipedia, where you just go and you can consume this information, but may not have direct access to make changes while you are consuming. There's no interface for that. Then we moved on to Web 2. Now Web 2 is where we have the read and write access. That's where social media came in, the likes of Facebook. You don't only read, you can also comment, you could also create posts, you could also be involved in a way. So we moved from read only to read and write. By read and write, I mean you can view and you can also make changes. If you have YouTube, X, and all of that, you can also create, comment, like, and all of that. You could also contribute to this particular version of the internet, which is the Web 2. Now, so what was the need for Web 3? This or the previous version of the internet were largely centralized. The big names, big organizations, the central authority, that's what they are, central authority. Authority was largely centralized. Ownership was largely centralized, meaning just a few people owned, just a few people had authority, just a few people made decisions, just a few people were in charge. That's what it actually, centralization actually entails. But the third web, now being Web 3, is about not just read and write, but also ownership, largely about ownership. Now what this means is that you can actually own, and of course even when it comes to assets, you can own assets and move assets around without needing central authorities like the central bank and other commercial banks, central banks and the likes. So you can actually own without and move assets around and a couple of other things without those central authorities. That's basically what Web3 is about. Web3 is the third version of the web that focuses on not just read and write, but went a step further to ownership and decentralization. So the third web is now owned by you and I, owned by everyone that cares to be involved in it, not just a few central authority. Now from this, you can still tell that there's a long way to go to actualizing what Web3 is about, because there's still largely centralization even in the third web as it is. So it means there's a long way to go. What that also means is that there are opportunities for you and for me. So in this channel, we'll be focusing on explaining so that even your grandma can walk in, and then when she consumes the content from this channel, she understands fully what Web3 is. So we'll not just be talking about what Web3 is, we'll be talking about how to stay positioned, whether you want to go into decentralized finance, whether you want to be a content creator, whether you want to position as a trader, whatever you want to do in Web3. Subscribe to this channel, hit the notification button, and stay tuned for other updates. One of the things I'll do is properly arrange the videos so that when you walk in, you see like a full guide on Web3, a full guide, so you know what to do. You're no longer confused, you're no longer wondering what not to do after you've consumed content from here and from there and from there. You can have like a full course where you understand the basics of Web3, where you have foundational knowledge of Web3, and from there you can scale. And of course, we'll be guiding you through a couple of things on this channel. That's why you don't want to miss out on the updates that will be dropping from time to time on this channel. So stay subscribed, turn on notifications so that you can be notified when new contents are dropped. There's a lot to benefit from the third web. What's the point of being in Web3 if you are not owning? What's the point of being in Web3 if you don't have access to certain assets, certain vital opportunities, earning opportunities? Why in Web3 if you don't own, you don't have access, and you're not earning? So Web3 is actually a huge opportunity for each and every one of us. Stay tuned to see how you can make the most of this. Thank you very much. See you in the next video. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button, like. You can drop a comment, maybe you have a question or something. You can leave a comment and we'll surely respond to it. You can also let us know what you'd like us to talk about, because it's a new channel, as you can see, and we're still trying to find out what people want to know more about the most. I've been interacting and interfacing with a lot of new people to see what they really want, the kind of content they would love for us to put out. And I would really love if you can suggest a few of them in the comment section. And don't forget to also like, then of course subscribe and turn on notifications for this channel. See you in the next video. Thank you very much for staying to the end.